Hey, good day. I hope you're doing all right. Welcome to a ThAB. This is the first in a series that I'm calling Something Different because this, and hopefully will be weekly, is going to be something different. This is for people who maybe have been driven out of the church, people who find Christianity to be problematic, maybe hypocritical, or people who just really are struggling with some things about the Christian faith tradition. And today's just a little introduction, next week I will go over a couple of sacraments, marriage and baptism namely. But I just want to say that, to be a Christian really just at the end of the day means that we're Christ followers. It's really that simple. It's as simple as Jesus walking down the beach and people following and stopping, eating some fish, some bread, getting water to people who are thirsty, helping others, And so Jesus and God in general are very big on relationships, right? And so I think the challenge with all faith traditions is that we try to make ourselves so unique that we begin to exclude people. And so this is going to be a very, very inclusive discussion. It will be crossing political and social boundaries because after all, that's what God does, And people say to me, hey, Pastor, quit being so political. I'm not. I'm actually being theological. Yeah, that's the problem when people want to mix politics into religion. You know what I'm saying? But what did Jesus say? Render unto Caesar. Yeah, it's kind of like wanting to put God in schools or wanting to legislate God. No, that's not supposed to be. That's not how Jesus wanted it. Jesus wasn't going out and doing rallies. Jesus was just walking around, healing people, giving people food, giving them somebody to affirm who they are. Anyway, by the way, and there are a lot of churches around this area who have this. See that? Flags. Yeah, that's politicizing the sanctuary, right? Because that's what the Romans did when they profaned the temple. They put their flags up in it. But that's another thing. We'll talk about flags later. So anyway, we will intersect with all sorts of things in life, politics and social issues being a couple of them. So being a Christian. Now, I'm not being woke when I say this, but I am basically, not verbatim, but I am summarizing Clement of Alexandria. And Clement of Alexandria is a church father. And he was around 150, 160 of the Common Era. So he's pretty close to the disciples in the time Jesus was there. It's a couple generations removed. The Gospel of John was written around the turn of the century, so that's around 100 of the Common Era. So that gives you an idea of how close he was. But Clement of Alexandria was a firm believer in what's called Logos Christology. And Logos means, of course, the Word. And so what he was emphasizing is that we all receive the Word in our own certain special way. God speaks to us as we need to be spoken to, in a language that we understand, right? So what is truth for me and what are truth for you may sound like two different things, but oftentimes they're the same thing. And I think that's what we're all fighting over, the way things sound. And so that was Clement of Alexandria. And what he said is that a person had to sift through a lot of beliefs. You have to sift through a lot of beliefs, meaning other religious traditions and philosophical information, all sorts of beliefs to come to their truth, right? See, Clement of Alexandria in the Levant is that Palestine, Egypt area, which historically was a big trading center for the world. And so there were a diversity of cultures in there. And Clement of Alexandria was adamant that Christians, or people who follow Christ, expose themselves to other religious traditions because he believed all religious traditions had what is called a kernel, and that is the kernel of truth. And that is what Clement of Alexandria believed. That's not a woke, newfangled idea, or as some people call it, a lefty progressive idea. That is actually a fundamental idea of many of the church followers. So he wrote about that in his book, The Miscellanies. He has it stromatized in The Miscellanies. So really what Clement of Alexandria was also, what he also said was that the texts, the scriptures that people use for their faith, specifically for Christians, he's saying, Christ followers, for the ecclesia, he was saying that the scriptures is an entry point to faith. But a person, when they become, as Paul would talk about people becoming mature and no longer drinking milk but eating meat, when they are mature eating meat, and this is from his book, The Pedagogus, when they are eating meat, they go beyond the Bible and they start getting into those esoteric understandings and the esoteric wisdom of the Logos, of the Word. In other words, the esotericism, things that are difficult for people to understand, but those who receive them understand them. So they are like private conversations with Jesus Christ. And we hear about that with the disciples in the New Testament. So you can read it to find that in there, because part of this is to get people to go into the Bible with a different lens. So you can go find where Jesus had those private discussions. That's what Clement is referring to when he's referring to esoteric wisdom. Jesus gave the disciples that esoteric wisdom that was beyond their Jewish scriptures, right? Beyond it. So that was their introduction, and that's how we develop our relationship with God. So at the end of the day, for those of you who have been driven away, what does it mean what I'm saying? What it means and what I am saying is to be a Christ follower. That's all you have to do is want to be a Christ follower. You just have to want to enter into a relationship with the Logos, with the Word, and that is Jesus Christ. You just have to want to be in a relationship with God. I'm going to talk about all that other stuff that we consider in our churches, our dogmas, our sacraments, which are all different church to church, denomination to denomination. And really, at the end of the day, all you simply need is to be willing. Keep your ears open, your eyes open, and your heart open, and you will enter into the esoteric wisdom of the Logos. You will become a Christ follower. Because God will speak to you in a way that you will understand. So I hope that helps. Next week we'll have a little something different about marriage and baptism. Those two items have driven people away. I had a couple of questions this week about baptism. So anyway, have a great day. Peace.